What's up, y'all? Today we're in Norcross, Georgia to check out this downtown area and see this city and see what the homes look like here in Norcross. Right now we're like in the historic downtown part of the city, so let's go see what this area is all about. As with many suburbs here around Atlanta, it's the railroad line that has had the biggest impact, especially on the beginning of these cities. And so you can see the railroad here, but then this is where like the historic city is. And so this is really like the origins of Norcross. This is the epicenter of Norcross. In just a minute, we're gonna go see where the train station used to be. They've turned it into a restaurant. And a lot of these shops here in these downtown areas, especially downtown Norcross, are like mom and pop local shops. This is really like where people are investing into their local businesses and investing in like the local areas and the people. You do that here in the downtown areas. All of these stores are locally owned, which is something that makes the area unique. You know, you're not gonna find this in the big downtown areas like Alpharetta, where you've got a bunch of chain stores, a bunch of chain restaurants, or like Atlanta, or you know, this kind of place is really where the people are feel a lot of pride for their community. So let's go for a quick walk down the downtown area, and then we're gonna go see some homes and some parks in the area as well. You can definitely see that kind of historic feel to these buildings. These are definitely like at least 100-year-old buildings. And so they've put these newer businesses in here, but they've really kept that historic feel. And one of the things that is interesting about Norcross is that it's very close to Peachtree Corners. Peachtree Corners, the city center, is about a 5 to 10 minute drive from here, but the two cities could not be any different. Peachtree Corners was not necessarily established by the railroad. Norcross was, and so it still has this kind of old feel, old vibe, these older buildings. And so very often people who are looking in this area of Gwinnett County, where Norcross is located, they're often comparing Peachtree Corners and Norcross because they're so close to each other. If you've seen my video on Peachtree Corners, you can see right away that the downtown area looks very different. It looks much newer, much more modern. And so that is something that's very different about Peachtree Corners and Norcross. You can see they've got a bunch of these kind of outdoor seating areas. This is really only something that you find in the downtown areas. A lot of these suburbs have these kind of downtown areas, and very often many of them have this kind of outdoor seating, but when you really live in the suburbs, it's harder to find this kind of outdoor seating. So let me quickly explain something that I think is kind of confusing about the Atlanta suburbs. While there are about 100 Atlanta suburbs, roughly, almost all of them have a city area like this, where it's, you know, you've got the old part of the city and you've got a lot of these shops and restaurants, but we are still talking about the suburbs. And so outside of this immediate area, if you go a mile away from this downtown Norcross area, the rest of Norcross looks very suburban. Lots of neighborhoods. You're not seeing cars super close to each other or businesses in walking distance. The rest of Norcross is not walkable like we're seeing right here. Very often people tell me that they want to live in a part of Metro Atlanta that has this super easy walkability. And really, if you're not living in like Midtown or downtown Atlanta, which nobody wants to live in, I don't want to live in Midtown or downtown. That place is very different than the suburbs. So unless you're living in one of those areas, you're really talking about one of the suburbs of Atlanta, and these suburbs are not super easily walkable unless you live within about a mile of the center of the city. So many of the Atlanta suburbs have this like super easy walkable areas like this, like downtown Norcross, and so it makes it easy to walk to all of these shops. You can very easily live in one of these condos that are super close to here, or houses. They also have single family residents very close to here as well. And so this is really one of the few pockets of Metro Atlanta that are easily walkable if you're not in the city of Atlanta. There is this super cool Taste of Britain store here. They actually have something similar in Marietta as well. This is very popular. All of the locals of Norcross know this store here. It definitely is a fan favorite. They've also got a couple other locally owned stores here. Good Things Home and Gardens. This spot here is apparently vacant, which is surprising. We've also got a jewelry store here in the downtown part. We've also got this Mojitos Cuban American Bistro. This is one of my favorites. I've been here quite a few times, especially as a Cuban American myself. Definitely feels like home. And then we've got also this nail and beauty salon over here. Down the way a little bit, we've got a boutique, another hair salon, a barber shop there as well. That is so funny. And then we've got like a law office there at the end. I don't want to interfere with these guys over here. And so definitely lots of interesting shops here. Again, very locally owned kind of area. As with many of these Atlanta suburbs, Norcross also has a lot of community events, lots of pride for the city. So let's take a look really quick here. I'm filming this in the middle of October, actually the end of October. So we've got a classic German car show here coming up October 26th, the beginning of November. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of holiday things coming up. So we've got the Friday concert, Veterans Ceremony in December is the holiday celebration, carriage rides, photos with Santa. So you can see they're always having some kind of events here in Norcross. And this is definitely one of the things that brings a lot of people to this area, is that kind of pride for the city and that kind of community feel. It's also a very family-friendly area as well. Across the street there is like the old train station. So the railroad line is just on the other side of the building there. And so they've converted that to a bunch of shops, and well, not a bunch, but a couple shops. There's probably a restaurant over there as well. But they always have this in so many of the suburbs. They keep that old train station. It really preserves that historical feel. And something that is a highlight of the downtown Norcross area. So again, lots of great things going on here in Norcross. And like I said, very often people who are considering Norcross are also considering Peachtree Corners because they're so close, or really any of the cities that are in Gwinnett County. They come here for the excellent schools, the family-friendly environment. But again, the difference between Peachtree Corners, which is 5 to 10 minute drive away, and Norcross is that Norcross is a much older city. Not just these older buildings that are like behind me here, but also even the homes are older. There's far less new construction here in Norcross. But one thing that makes Norcross way better than Peachtree Corners are the home prices. Because it's a bit older, you can get a remodeled home here for $500,000. The same cannot be said for Peachtree Corners, where you're looking at closer to $600 or $650 for a home. So to be able to find homes that are far more affordable and still have that kind of historic feel like this, be just a few minutes away from Peachtree Corners, still have the excellent schools, this is really one of the biggest things that brings so many people to the Norcross areas. They're looking for that much more affordable homes. As always, if you're thinking about buying a home here in Norcross, or you just have any questions about what it's like to live here, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. I'm the one who answers those phone calls, those text messages, those emails, and I'd be happy to help with your moving needs to the Metro Atlanta area. Right now, we're gonna go see some homes in the Norcross area, and then we're also gonna see some parks and what those green spaces look like. All right, so we've made it over to Lillian Webb Park, and this is just walking distance from the downtown area. And this is really more like the city center, I would say, or like a very common community gathering area in the middle of Norcross. You can see the park behind me here has a huge green space. And so there are lots of parks all around Norcross, including this one. So many of the suburbs around Atlanta have these kinds of parks like all over the city. And there are lots of green spaces around all of these suburbs. And the reason for that is because Metro Atlanta is kind of like a tropical area. It's a subtropical climate. And so there is lots of vegetation. There's lots of wooded areas all over the state of Georgia. So very often these cities that are developed, they essentially are cut out of the woods. They're cut out of these green spaces. And so if there's any area that's kind of like left undeveloped, they just turn it into a park. And so that's why we have so many parks all around the metro Atlanta area, and Norcross is exactly the same. They have tons of parks, tons of green space all around the city. So this is super convenient. Of course, if you're living in this area, you're going to be very close to a park no matter what part of Norcross you're living in. Here are actually some of the homes that are super close to this Lillian Webb Park. And so it's super easy walking distance to the park, walking distance to downtown Norcross. These homes were actually built in about 2016, I believe. Most of these are 4-bed, 3-bath homes, about 2,500 square feet, and they sell for about $550,000 to $600,000. Very modern style in an older town, and so you really get that historic feel here in Norcross with a newer home, and this is one of the things that brings so many people to this area. There are definitely a lot of great reasons to move to Norcross, but I think there are some better suburbs of Metro Atlanta, actually. In fact, I made an entire video about the 5 best suburbs of Metro Atlanta. You can check out that video right here. I'll see you in the next one.